right, so today is going to be a pretty brutal one. We're doing some max FTP efforts here. Doing today with a little twist, though. I'm going to play my podcasts from the past, in case you didn't see them or you missed them. You know, that would be kind of a cool little feature to add on here. So today's going to be with former Olympic swimmer Nei-Kuan Chia. Guy's awesome, fun to listen to. So yeah, enjoy. Here we go. About to rip it off right here. We're doing Lutscher in Innsbruck. We're trying to get that badge today too. Yeah, so let's get it going here. Let's see. Start playing it. Here we go. Boom.
Hey, we are finally up and running. I apologize for the delay. I'm not the most technologically savvy person in the world, and my guest today has been so patient. I really appreciate it a lot. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce two-time Olympian and a friend of mine, Nei-Kuan Chia. Nei-Kuan, thanks for hopping on. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Well, this is, I'll be honest with you, one of the most exciting things that I've done in a while, because I've been Twitch live streaming for a long time, a couple months, and I've also been, I did the first episode about my life, kind of my journey to getting to the point that I'm at, and I've been talking to myself for a long time, so it's nice to actually have someone on the other end, to have a dialogue with. So this is very, very exciting.
I'm happy to be your Wilson.
That's true. That's very true. So thank you for that. So I guess
first off, happy birthday or happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Once you get to a certain point, you're like, whatever. You're just leveling up at this point, right?
I'm finally glad you turned 21. So now you can come hang out with
The
me.
big 2-1, man. I'm an adult. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah. We don't have to card you everywhere.
Yeah, well, I'm still pretty short. I am like childlike, so I still get carded. That's why I have a beard, so people know that I'm not a child. So basically, I guess the thing I want to get across first is, the reason for this podcast and the show is, I draw inspiration from, when I thought my athletic career was coming to an end because I was out of college and I was playing semi-pro football, but I know I couldn't do that forever. I started really kind of searching around and looking for a different avenue to kind of get that competitive outlet, kind of quench that thirst, right? And when I started to really engulf myself in the world of triathlon, you're thinking, there's running, there's swimming, and there's biking. So there's just, so many athletes that you can follow and kind of draw inspiration from. And when I first came across your profile, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I think it was something along the lines of, like, I was searching specific hashtags or something like that, and I came across your profile and it says like two-time Olympian swimmer. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna follow this guy, like this is awesome. And I'll never forget when I saw the follow back, I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I thought that was pretty cool. So when I came up with this idea for the podcast, and I've been following you obviously, and you helped me out. I don't know if you remember or not, but you wrote me up a critique about how my motion was when I was swimming. So I appreciate that. It was a lot of critiquing, which I needed. It's good. But you were the first person that really came to mind as an inspiration of someone who continues to compete at a really high level. As you get older. So it's just fitting that you're the first person that I'm talking to on the podcast. So I think the main thing I want to kind of, start off with is, the two-time Olympian thing is really cool, and we'll get into that. But as far as, I asked you to send me a couple pictures so I could use to kind of lead up to it. And the first picture that you sent me had a laundry list of different, achievements and accolades that you accomplished. And it's impressive. So I guess the first thing, let's start at the beginning. Obviously you've been swimming for a very long time, and if you want to kind of talk about a little bit your path to becoming a swimmer and how you got to where you got to today.
Yeah, no, happy to. But first, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be your first guest. And,
Big day.
I do remember when we were talking and sent me the videos of you swimming, and I was looking through and writing it up, and then we chatted afterwards. You've come a long way, man.
No, I appreciate it. You're a big part of it, so thank you.
Hard work and dedication really pays off. So, many congratulations to you on that.
Thanks.
I started swimming at the age of 11, and it was kind of a random event. I had a big fear of the water. Growing up, I didn't know how to swim, and I grew up in Florida mostly, so that's pretty awkward with beaches and pools everywhere.
Right.
But I was actually at a water theme park in Panama City, Florida. I grew up in Tallahassee with family, and I didn't know how to swim. I was 11 years old. My dad was holding my hand in the tidal wave, and for some crazy reason, he let go. And all of a sudden, I got sucked by the waves into the deep end, and I started to drown. And luckily, a lady, I just remembered sinking to the bottom, trying to reach for the top. I just couldn't do it. And then some lady pulled me up. I was coughing. I was choking. And then my mom was worried sick, and the lifeguard came over. And then the next day, my mom, when we got back home, drove me to the local swim club and put me on the swim team. And I remember standing there in the diving well with a bunch of 5 and 6-year-olds learning how to swim, basically, going back and forth in the diving well.
Right. And
I was 11. I was pretty tall. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified.
All right, 2:30 here.
I remember the coach behind me shoving me into the pool. I sank straight down to the bottom, 10 feet deep. And I was like, did somebody come and save me? And, but I just remember these tiny kids swimming above me back and forth. It was embarrassing. I pushed myself from the bottom up, figure out how to get to the edge of the pool, and then just went from there. About a month and a half later, I ended up competing in my first race. So, it was just one of those things where life happens, and random thing happened, and it got me into swimming. And I swam starting that point on. I did most of these summer competitions. My dream had always been to be the first Asian NBA basketball player. So my first love was basketball, and I played through my sophomore year in high school.
And you said you were tall, right? So that helps.
I was tall, but I got to do my sophomore year in high school and got playing basketball. And I was still swimming too, and so I got to finish my swimming season and got to basketball season. My junior year, I had just finished second at state in the 100 freestyle in Florida my junior year. So I go to my basketball coach's office, and he said, listen, and I stopped growing at that point. I peaked in my in growth, and my coach sat me down. He said, listen, how many NBA players do you see right now that are Asian? And I thought about it for a second. I said 0. He said, exactly. He said, you'd be a decent basketball player. You may get to Division II, maybe Division III. And the only recruiting letter I'd gotten in basketball thus far was from Emory University. And but swimming, I started getting a lot of attention all of a sudden. He said, you can get a full ride to swim in college. And I was like, well, if I really wanted to be a professional basketball player, that's my dream. He said, well, I'll go home and think about it. So I went home and thought about it. And the next day I came back to my basketball coach and said, I quit. I was like, I'm going to focus on swimming. So that then changed kind of how I viewed swimming as a sport. And I never thought about the Olympics. I never really thought about anything in swimming, because all my whole life I wanted to play professional basketball. Mm-hmm. And from that moment on, starting basically halfway through my junior year, I that was the first time I started doing swimming full-time year-round. And I got to my senior year in high school. I ended up winning state championships in the 100 freestyle. I went home to Taiwan, and I won nationals and made my first Olympics that summer, and went to Atlanta. And
all right, we got the last part of the warm-up here. We got 2 minutes and 2:55.
I just went from there. I got opportunity to swim at Florida State University. I swam there, for my 4 years of college, and then when I left, I took a deviation. I quit briefly to go to med school, but then after a year of med school, I was like, I need to go back to swimming. And so I took a year off in med school, got back in the pool, made my second Olympic team, which was Sydney, and I never went back to med school. I kept on swimming for the next 4 years after that, and that was my passion. But then, life, it was a fun time, fun experience. I was young. I finally, but when you're young and as an athlete, you're always geared about winning. Everything is about, I need to win, I need to win. And it became a business, especially after college, where you had all these expectations, you had all these, a lot of it self-imposed, but people only cared about, if you're winning or you're losing. There was nothing in between. And you had sponsors you had to live up to and expectations there. So it became a business. And I started to feel burned out. You had this amount of effort you had put in, the amount of training. It just became something where I lost the passion. Mm-hmm. So I quit in 2004. I injured my shoulders and leading into trials.
And Sydney was when?
2000.
Okay.
So 2004, I tried, and before trials, my shoulders just couldn't take it. So that was it, and I quit. I retired. I moved on with my life. I cut swimming and exercise out of my life 100%.
So at this point, we're talking like you're maybe 25 years old, something like that, and you've been doing it since you were 11.
All right, so we got 3 minutes at 1:30 now. Then that main set, it's gonna be a bear.
So you got 14 years of just all out, going as hard as you can, swimming almost every day, highest competition you possibly can, and then at 25, once it became really like businessy, and kind of sounds like it was a very different vibe than it was growing up for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, you everything was marked up. If you call it from high school on, right? I mean, you're competing. Everybody is focused on you. You're identified as a swimmer, right? Mm-hmm. That's your whole personality, your whole persona. And for a while, that's great. You're known for something. Right? Mm-hmm. You're identified as something. Gives you some kind of self-confidence or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when you get to the point where it becomes a routine, it becomes a business, you start for why you're doing something. Mm-hmm. There's not a purpose behind it. There's not a passion behind it, and it just becomes a grind. So by the time I got to my mid-20s, it was well past. At that time, no one competed in their mid-20s. No one competed in their 30s. You're kind of just done. Mm-hmm. So I moved up, and there's no money in swimming. You can't really do it professionally and make a living off of it.
There's no NFL of swimming,
No, I mean, there's not even, last year was the first year that we were professional leagues.
See, I didn't even know that existed, so there you go.
Yeah, it just started. It's the ISL was in year 1, and then COVID hit, so now it's kind of waiting for year 2 for next year. Yeah. But you didn't have the endorsement dollars, like you don't have Michael Phelps getting multi-million-dollar endorsements. You didn't have swimwear lines didn't give money to athletes to wear their suits, so it just wasn't the thing back then. So there just wasn't money to be made, really. So I had to get a real job and move on with my life.
So here, okay, I'm going to cut you off right here because this is, I think, a good dividing point. First of all, that story, there's a lot to unpack there. The idea of you drowning and eventually becoming, the highest level of, swimmer you could possibly be is what a story, right? Like for most kids, if you're going to, your first experience is almost drowning, and then the next day your coach is pushing you in the pool.
This is going to be a bear here. We got 5 separate sessions of 8 minutes at 275, then 2 minutes at 105, short recovery periods. Here we go.
Like most people are going to be like, kids are going to be traumatized, like, okay, I'm out of here. That's enough of this. So that's crazy interesting. Also, by you saying you swam at Florida State, I have some friends who you just gained some followers. I'll tell you that.
Nice.
Yeah, shout out to Lorenzo, Haley, and Kyle.
Darn and gold.
So they're going to be all jacked up that you said that. The other thing I was going to say, so when you went from post collegiate, that 4 years where you're saying it was all about the business, and it's like the Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, your last thing, right? What league is that, or what was it? Because I know you obviously just mentioned about that professional league. What were you doing from 21 to 25? Like, where were you competing? What league, or what was that?
Yeah, so I mean, there wasn't really a league, right, in swimming until recently. So by professional, I had endorsements, I had sponsorships. So I had Power Bar, I had Arena Swimwear. Those are my sponsors.
Okay.
So it was peanuts. I mean, compared to what athletes get these days, I mean, literally it was enough to cover travel and some other stuff. But
you were kind of like trailblazing. It was like the very early days of it, right? Or?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, I think somewhere around right when I started swimming, Michael Phelps signed kind of that first big endorsement contract with Speedo, and that was, I think that was, I want to guess, probably $500,000, maybe. I don't know. I mean, if that. But that was like the first major, individual who really kind of taken over in terms of endorsements for swimming. But it just wasn't there. You might be lucky to have enough money to feed yourself if that. So
you're really doing it for the love of the game, or the sport at that point.
It was about passion. It was about wanting to continue to be an athlete, which is what I was my whole life, and doing something or trying to reach a goal that I set for myself. And unfortunately, it didn't quite pan out exactly the way I wanted to. But swimming these days is a lot different than it was back then too. But the money just wasn't. As an athlete, post college, most athletes just stop because there's no money to support.
And that's exactly the mindset that behind this whole idea of talking to people like you is. Sure, the sport, like the paths may end, for a specific sport like swimming, or there's a whole laundry list of athletics that you can do in college that there's just really no track to do professional. So I know I'm one of these kind of people who that drive to compete doesn't go away. So my goal is to provide different opportunities for people to hear you and be like, and this is going to be the segue to now, you gave up for a little bit, and, I cut you off when you said I wanted to start, I had to get a job, and move on. And this is where the story for me really starts to get interesting, because I think a lot of people, don't have that channel to compete in different ways. So how many, high-level Division I, Division II, Division III swimmers are out there that stopped after college, but still have that itch to swim, and every gym has a pool now, and it's really easy to get access to a pool. So if we can plant the seed, and this is where I'm kind of leading the conversation right now, is I want to know about how you compete now and where you compete, and just the kind of different outlets that you have or opportunities available to you as a swimmer. So start at the job thing you said.
Sure. So I got a job. I moved on with my life in the sport, and sadly, like a lot of people, that became focus number one. So working out, swimming, anything that involved fitness went out the door. So I didn't go to the gym. I never saw the pool. I didn't do anything for over 8 years. All I did was, how many buffets can I eat? And tackle.
Still eating like a swimmer.
Yeah, I mean, I still ate like a swimmer. I didn't do anything else like that. I gained 60-some pounds from when I was in college, post-college. I literally got to a point where I was completely unhealthy. I had a couple of cancer scares that luckily ended up not being cancerous.
Oh, jeez.
But, I had gotten married at the time. I was married for the 8-year period. And then in 2013, late 2012, I went through a divorce, and through that, I got put in. I went to see a doctor. I got checked out, and lo and behold, my doctor's like, "You're not very healthy. I was, borderline on having heart disease. And I was early 30s. I had potential. I was a very strong candidate for potential kidney issues because I was so overweight. I was starting to become diabetic because I was so overweight. So all these things. I went from peak physical health to lifetime of medication in an 8-year window.
This is shocking to me because if people listening, now don't know you, if you were to look at your, social media activity now and your accomplishments, later in life, holy cow, that's crazy to think that, you went from where you were in college to this point, and, I don't want to spoiler alert, back to the, peak of your, your swimming. So that's really crazy. I would have never known that.
Yeah, it was a shock. It was a shock to me. I didn't grow up in a family who's really none of my relatives, none of my family are athletic. They never did sports. I was kind of the black sheep of the family for wanting to do sports. I had to make a deal with my parents to be able to go to swim in college.
Wow.
That wasn't bred in my life. So when I became unhealthy and I walked out of the doctor's office, I didn't know what to do. And the only thing I knew, because I had gone to med school, I knew if I start that cocktail of medications, I'm going to be on that for most of my life, if not the rest of my life. And I was facing, in my 30s, early 30s, potentially life and death situation.
That's wild.
So, I left, but I refused. I told the doctor I can't take this because I know what this means. And I remember sitting there. I said, I can't take this. She's like, well, I cannot prescribe you these. So I'm going to give you the prescription. It's your choice if you take it or not. She said, but I warn you, it's life or death. If you still don't start changing your habits, taking this medication, you could die. And
you're so young. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's being discussed. Wow.
I went home and I really thought about myself and where I would be. My son was an infant at the time, and I had promised him I would be there for as long as I possibly can. So, the only thing I knew in my life was to get healthy, I had to exercise. And the only exercise I could do was swim. So my choice at that point was, get back.
That is incredibly difficult. And I got 4 more of those. Yikes. All right.
Back in the pool, get healthy, and face death. So that's what I did. It was not pretty day one. I actually I still have a video that one of my colleagues took of me, and my first time in the pool in 8 years. It was not pretty. It was quite scary, but that started the process, the journey to make a comeback. And I got in, started getting in once a day, and I barely could do a 500 yards of swimming. It would exhaust me.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was so out of shape. I was just the cardiovascular system that I had was terrible. My heart rate would skyrocket just doing a couple of 100 yards at a time. So at first it was doing 500, and I swam every single day. I progressed, and I added a little bit more every week. And finally, after 3 months, I had lost 10 pounds. And I remember walking back into my doctor's office. She was like, I need to check you every 3 months. And I walked in there, and she was shocked. All my health metrics had gone back to acceptable ranges.
That's amazing.
And she said, what have you been doing? I said, I got in the pool and started swimming again.
Not taking your meds, that's what I'm doing.
yeah, exactly. So, but listen to your doctors though.
Yeah, that's right. Disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer.
Here we go. Set 2 of 5 coming up.
But I wanted. I'm the type of person who wants to have some kind of control over my own life. Like I don't like to depend on folks. I don't want, if it's with me and myself, like I need to have the sense that I can control something. So, the only thing I could do is get my health back together. With everything else around me and my world was crumbling at home. So that's what I focused on. But, after 3 months of swimming every day, it got boring. Because, as you are well know, when you're an athlete, especially once you get to college and then beyond, your whole life is about setting goals.
Right.
Your whole life is about, I need a goal to do something. I have to have a purpose. If I don't have a purpose, it means nothing. Mm-hmm. Like if I don't have a purpose to do something, I'm just not going to do it because it's wasting my time because I'm not going to give 100%. Mm-hmm. So I got to a point where going to school every day just seemed monotonous. It was boring. As anybody who swims will tell you, going back and forth in a tiny little pool, you stare at the same black line. You don't have music. You don't have any interaction. It's not fun.
Yep.
So I thought about stopping, but then a friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't you just find some small, dinky competition locally that you can do? It'll give you a goal." And I said, "Wow, that's been high stuff." Right? Like I said, "Well, I used to do this."
Where I was,
now,
exactly, yeah.
Now I can barely move up and down the pool.
Ego starts to get in the way. That's right, yeah.
Right, so I said, no, that's I have quote unquote reputation to maintain.
Yeah.
So I said, no, actually, who cares? This is about you. This is about your life and death. This is about your own health. Get over yourself.
You got a good friend.
Yeah, that's what we all need, right? We need close friends who tell you the truth. And I'm thankful that my friends are like, just get over yourself. You're not special. You're not that important. Who cares? No one's gonna care if you're dead. That no one's gonna care. Yeah. So I did some research. I found out there's some local swim meets, the masters meets, and there's local developmental meets. So I signed up for them.
And real quick, can you just define masters, just so for people who don't know?
So masters is, I guess in triathlon world, there's age groups.
Right.
So masters is age groups. So it's 18 years old and above, and you're broken into, I guess, 5-year increments. And it starts at 18 and goes onward to 100 plus.
Infinity, yeah.
Yes. I don't know how to get to 100 plus, but
never know.
It starts at 18.
Something to shoot for.
Yeah, exactly. But you're slotted into age groups. You're ranked within your age group. But depending on what the competition is, there's no barriers to who can participate in masters. You have Olympians, former Olympians, current Olympians. You have current world record holders. You have Ryan Lochte competing before you have. You have all kinds of folks who do masters too. Because it's just another avenue that allows folks to still compete in swimming. And largely it's to promote health and wellness, but it has become a lot bigger in the last 10, 15 years.
So you could have Ryan Lochte, and then you could have, some guy who's just picked up the sport at 45 years old hopping.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is, everybody, it doesn't matter what level you are, because it's not for most, you try not to think about the end result. Right? It's not about winning or losing, because hopefully you're doing it for a passion of keeping fit and keeping healthy versus, hey, I want to dominate the world or something like that. But but it's a great avenue. It's very competitive. There's as regular swimming, there's world championships, there's Asian championships, there's U.S. championships, Canadian championships, European championships, and you have a lot of very competitive swimmers who are still competing. There are a lot of folks in masters who will be going to Olympic trials. Was this year, the next year. Right? So it's very competitive.
So is a meet is the structure of a masters swim meet similar to like it is in high school or college, where it's just the different events and waves of events, stuff like that?
It's the structure is pretty much the same types of events.
Okay.
The only difference is you don't have a prelims finals set up, so you don't have to swim 16s within a 8-hour period, which is good, especially as you get older when you can't recover from a 50-meter swim. So,
the battery just doesn't get as charged as it used to, right?
No. You're just be lucky that you can get on bed some days. But it's great. It allows you to have goals still. It allows you to have some purpose on what you're doing, and just not in the pool every day going doing laps for no reason. So that was my first avenue to kind of get back into swimming. And I did a local meet. And when I did the local, I did a 50. I was nervous as there ever was. I remember standing on the block.
For those of you listening too, a 50 is 2 laps. It's there and back. Or no, an Olympic pool is just there, right?
Yeah, it depends on short course or long course.
Yeah.
But I remember standing up on the block the night before. I couldn't sleep. I was saying. And literally was in a high school in Atlanta, and I felt like I was preparing for Olympic trials or something. But I got in, I dove in, I sprinted a 50 freestyle, and I was like, wow, it was actually pretty good. I was very surprised at myself. So that kind of gave me the drive to continue.
And how old are you at this point?
34, 35 maybe.
Got it.
And it was nice. Like, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a goal, and I started doing some bigger things, bigger competitions, and it really kind of gave me the avenue, the drive to continue to be healthy and continue to train. Then I think about 3 years into it, I really started to feel like I was getting back to my somewhat of a former self in terms of form. So, I started swimming more competitive meets for USA Swimming, where I'm racing teenagers and 20-year-olds.
And we're talking, you're in your late 30s at this point, right?
Yeah. So, it's very awkward to stand on the block, or it's even more awkward when you show up to the pool and you go to security and they go, "Are you a coach or a parent?" I'm like, "No, I'm neither. I'm a swimmer." and they look at me with this funny look.
Excuse me? Yeah.
All right, guys. That's 2. That's 2 down. 3 to go. Halfway through this next one, we'll be halfway through all of them. So when we're done with this next set, we're on the other side of the mountain.
So that
Look at that. Set a PR in the process.
Every time I go to one of those swimmer competitions.
That's funny.
But I started doing those and did more and more things. And in 2016, I went back home to Taiwan to do trials, just because I wanted just one last opportunity to do that. And then the last few years, 2 or 3 years, I did more international competitions. So mostly through Masters, I did World Championships in 2017 in Budapest, World Championships in 2019 in South Korea.
And how do you qualify for those at these Masters events?
Well, yeah, so they do have qualifying times that you have to make in order to compete. There's not a national team per se you have to make, but you do have qualifying times standards you have to make, and it's by age group. So
interesting. So it's not by. So my frame of reference is with triathlon. You do a local race, and then what happens is you go to the national championships. You have to, if you're basically within a certain percentage of the fastest time, you have to be within that, and you have to what is it? You have to win a local race in your age group, and then be within a certain percentage, and then you go to the national championship, and then they'll take the top 10. So it's it's ranked. So with swimming, is it like there's a qualifying?
Here we go, guys. 8 more minutes.
Time, but is there like if someone does it faster or that doesn't matter?
No, so there's no national team designation. I mean, you're designated by the club you're representing and what country that represents, but you don't necessarily have a national team selection.
Got it.
But you go to Worlds and you go to more kind of like European championships or Asian championships or Pan American championships. You have people from a lot of different countries, and you'll have, I would say, probably 10-15% of those are former national team members, Olympians.
That's so cool.
So it's the top tier of I said master swimmers across the world is very fast.
So is it kind of like the Boston Marathon where, like for me, I just turned 34. So there's the 30 to 35 age group, and there's the Boston qualifying time. And I'm just shooting to get to that Boston. So is that kind of similar to how it works?
Yeah, so you're grouped by age, you qualify by age group.
Got it.
So and then, smaller, non-international or national age, your competition, even though you place by age group, you're actually racing everybody.
Oh, okay.
There is no age group designation when you're actually racing.
Got it.
Placing to break you out.
So it's basically how you it's how they select the people that are able to go to the championships, and then once you're there, it's like just a it's by time then.
Well, no. So like world championships, right? You have different ages, and you compete within that age. So you're not racing anybody older or younger than your age group. The smaller groups around the U.S., specifically, you're racing not by age group. You're racing based on time, right? You're seeded based on time. So you could be racing a 20-year-old, or you can be racing a 50-year-old at the same time. It's all just based on time.
So say I'm a former swimmer. I'm sitting here listening to this podcast, and I say, I want to get into this. I want to see what I can do. They hear your story, and it's like, oh my God, this guy was basically, having to make the decision to get on pills to save his life, and he decided to get in the pool and, was struggling to do a 50. If I'm that person and I want to get into it, is there a central database where I can look and see where races are in my area? And what would that be?
Yeah. So you go to, if you're in the U.S., you go to usms.org. That's the U.S. Masters Swimming website. They will have all the resources you can possibly have. Finding a local club that's near you if you want to join a team to swim with. You can always race as an unattached swimmer, so you're not affiliated with a club, you're just racing for yourself. And they also have just a calendar of events coming up.
So chances are, if you live somewhere in the U.S., you're going to have the ability to go to some meets, within relatively close distance to where you live.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are certain states that have a lot more competition than others. Florida, Georgia, Texas, California. I think they have competitions all the time, pre-COVID. But they're North Carolina, probably another one. There's a lot of competition.
That's cool. Very cool. So okay. So now that we get the background, you know what I thought was interesting too? I forgot to mention earlier. It's funny that you had to make the decision in high school or you didn't have to make the decision. I'm sorry, where you were like with basketball, I'm just kind of leave that. And I grew up. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and up there, they're the same season. So you wouldn't even be able to do them at the same time. So once you get to high school, or middle school actually, you have to decide, I'm either going to be a swimmer or a basketball player. So I was, if you grew up in a different state, who would have thought, you may have picked basketball and then never even gotten into swimming, right?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I could be Jeremy Lin, right?
Or you could be Jeremy Lin, yeah. So I was going to ask you, when you say home is Taiwan, so is that where you were born and grew up?
That's where I was born, yep.
Awesome.
I was born in Taiwan. I moved to the States when I was 5.
Okay, gotcha. So the whole drowning in a pool incident, that was here in the States.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you still have family over in Taiwan?
I do. All of my relatives on my dad's side of the family still live in Taiwan.
Cool. Did you make it over there a lot?
I think the last time was 2016.
Wow.
I haven't been back since. I was hoping to go back this year, but
Yeah, we go.
a lot of things happened that prevented me from doing that. So it's my family's out there. I don't know it's a little early for them. I don't know if they're watching. So they are high. But they're all out. It's my family, the country. It's a small island. It was founded in 1949, and it's my home. And,
That's cool.
As much as I'm American, I'm also Chinese/Taiwanese. So,
That's very cool. That's cool. Yeah. Well, so one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, one of them was, as far as let's look at your career in kind of two divisions, right? You growing up in high school and college, you're doing all the things that you accomplished in the two Olympics. Incredible. Let's look at after, so we heard about what happened with you is, you hit your late 20s, early 30s, and, started to get back into it. So if you could, I think this is just a kind of a cool example of what you're able to accomplish as you get older, but you're still an athlete. What are some of the things that you've accomplished, when you got into swimming for like the second time, basically?
Yeah. So, one, I lost 60 pounds. So that was probably
that's the biggest win right there.
Yeah. So that'll be my top achievement. This summer at World Championships in South Korea.
Come on.
I won 2 golds and 5 total medals.
That's ridiculous. Is that the picture you sent me?
Yes.
You're holding the medals? Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah, so that was this past summer. Our relay team was ranked first in the world, mixed relay team. We had some phenomenal teammates who were like my family. And the year before in 2018 was Asian Championships, and I had.
All right, guys. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. 3 down, 2 to go.
Won 3 golds, 2 silvers, and 2 bronze. I've been, ranked top 10 in the world for my events 16 times. I'm, 18 number 1 rankings in the United States for Masters.
That's incredible.
9-time All-American. I'm trying to think what else.
Oh, that's it? What a loser. Well, let me ask you this then.
I got 2. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Keep going. This is awesome.
Got 2 YMCA national records. I had 1 U.S. Masters record. Way long ago, I had a World Masters record. So yeah.
So to be clear, this isn't your job. You're not a professional. You're not a full-time.
No.
You know what I mean? So.
No, if my colleagues are listening to this right now, they would argue that this may be my job.
So what do you do? What do you do for a living?
So I work for Cox Enterprises. It's a company that has 3 businesses. It's communications, automotive, and formerly media. We're a $20 billion plus company, mostly domestic. It's family-owned, privately held. I'm based in Atlanta, and I am in the corporate development M&A investments group.
And what's a typical, where is it?
Those 2-minute sessions go by way too fast. Here we go. Time to crank it again.
Like your standard, kind of like your 9 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of gig, or how?
Yeah,
is it
I mean,
more
mostly.
than that?
Mostly. It's in M&A and investments, it's largely deal driven. So when you're in a deal, hours can get crazy.
Right. Whatever you got to do to get it done. Right?
Yeah. And I think where we might be headed towards in this conversation. I'm very thankful. I'm very blessed that my job, my bosses, my colleagues are like a family. My team that I'm with, we're only about 18, 20 people. We used to be only like 5 when I first started. But we're like a family. And
That's
there's
great.
a lot of flexibility. They support me and what I do outside of work. Not only just with swimming, but with my son. So I get flexibility. There's a lot of work flexibility as well. It's about you getting work done. Right? It doesn't matter when or how, as long as you're doing the job to get it done. I don't care.
That's great.
When I need to go race, like World Championships, I took 3 weeks off, and they're like, "Yeah, no worries, go ahead."
That's amazing. What a setup, man! You're doing it.
Yeah. So, but the key is having an environment and a support system to really allow you to do that. And thankfully, and I'm blessed and grateful that I have that. And that's been what has given me the opportunity and the success to do what I've done.
So what's a typical training week look like for you? Are you a morning person, or do you do it after work? And obviously with the kid, you gotta make sure that you're there for him. And
right.
Do you have a structured plan that you follow, or so kind of just generally speaking, if you want to go over your training plan, I think a lot of people want to know that.
So it's more. I think number one, for all athletes at kind of later stages in life, you have to be flexible and be adaptable with your training. Mm-hmm. Work and family always has to come first. So my normal routine that I plan out, and that doesn't always follow suit, is I train before work in the mornings. I usually swim an hour to an hour and a half, and then in the evenings after work, or sometimes if I have time on a lunch break, I'll work out. But then I do another hour and a half afterwards.
That's my phone. Sorry.
No worries.
Rookie move there. Rookie move. We turn phone.
You're right.
I don't have Uber Eats, buddy. Come on now.
I'm cutting into your dinner time.
No.
But so I do train twice a day because I can't book out 2-3 hours to train at one block. There's no way to do that. So I have to be flexible. So I try to train. I try to get in twice a day of workouts. I'll try to get in swimming workouts anywhere between 7 to 9 sessions a week. Okay. And then I'll do 3 weight sessions during the week. And if I don't have my son during the week, I may throw in another 1 or 2 of dryland work. Mm-hmm. So that's generally my training routine. But it doesn't always work out that way. So a lot of times if work is busy or I have my son, I have to cut the training down. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll not do a day or 2 on a weekday and do it all on the weekend. Or sometimes I skip a workout and do add another hour or 2 tacked on to a Saturday.
Now, do you have a coach?
I sometimes do. I used to, not so much anymore. I have to coach myself. But I do, for a while I swam with a bunch of, for a good 4 or 5 years I swam with a group at the club by my house. And they've become my family as well. And a really good group of people that, there's a mix. We used to have teenagers to 40, 50-year-olds, and everybody in between. So it was a good mix. We had swimmers, former swimmers, current swimmers, elite triathletes, age group triathletes, So it was a good smorgasbord of people.
That's great.
But it was fun. I mean, it was always a highlight on my day for most parts.
I always think when you're in groups like that, it's just so. I think a lot of people miss out on that. You know, a lot of people aren't a part of what I'm learning about the endurance, world as I start to really dive into it. Is everyone's so supportive, and positive, and it doesn't matter how good you are. You could be the best one there or the worst one there. You're there, and that's really what matters. And it's fun to be a part of that supportive group. And when you see people start to hit PRs or do stuff they've never done before, it, even if you're the best one there, it's going to motivate you to keep going and doing your best because you're seeing how much it means to, certain people to hit PRs and stuff like that.
Yeah. One thing I would say is this whole pandemic, more and more you realize how, at least what I like to call it, a swim family. It's not just local. It's all around the United States, all around the world. We're all connected, either Facebook, social media,
right.
Text messages, WhatsApp, whatever that means. But it's literally a family. And we check on each other, we help each other with advice, workouts, pointers, or just be there for support. And that's been incredible. I mean, we offer each other advice, we listen to each other, not just about swimming or exercise, but just life in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's been, in this time of isolation, it's meant a lot to me, and it's given me an avenue to not feel isolated. In isolation can be very dangerous. It leads to depression, it leads to potential suicide. And we've seen that a lot.
And that's the double-edged sword of social media is, that you can, it depends on how you use it. You can use it as that, way of finding community and finding people that are supportive, encouraging, but you could also sit on there and just, read the bad news and see all the bad that's going on in the world and kind of paint the picture that way too. So you're right. I mean, if you're kind of diving in that world, it can have definitely some negative consequences.
Yeah, it's amazing how people, and I'm pretty sure the tri community is saying is that everybody's so helpful. They want to be there to help you. It's not about them. It's very selfless, which I don't want to stereotype the world, but these days, we do tend to. I mean, it's human nature. We tend to think about ourselves, right? I mean, we're all selfish in some way, but it's amazing how there are so many selfless people that I've encountered in the swimming community and the tri community who are there to help. Right? All they care about is your well-being more than theirs.
Yeah.
That is.
All right, guys. This is hard. On the last one, though.
For me, has given me hope for humanity. I mean, in these days, with COVID and what has gone on in our nation and the world in general, it gives me hope, right? I mean, it gives me hope that the world isn't falling apart.
I mean, my guest tomorrow, his name's Philip Young, and he is the duathlon age group national champion. And he's a friend of mine because at my first age group national championship for triathlon, I had only been doing the sport for like 3 or 4 months, and he was next to me, and I was picking his brain because I'm like, listen, man, I don't know what the hell's going on. He's like, how are you here? And the next year, we kind of like exchanged numbers. He's like, hey, man, if you ever got any questions, hit me up. And he lives in Memphis, Tennessee. And he's like, if you ever have any questions or anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Friend him on Facebook, whatever. Well, the next year,
gotta get mentally
just
prepared.
by happenstance, me and him are next to each other again. And we tried to figure it out because his last name's Young, mine's Goldsmith, not close, we're like, I'm like, when did you sign up? And, he was on the ball. He signed up like as soon as he could, as soon as he qualified. It was last minute, so that wasn't it. So it was crazy that we were next to each other again. But then that year, we both qualified for the World Championships, and then we went to Worlds together, and the rest is history, and now we're really good friends. But
The last 8 minutes of hell coming up. We can do this.
that's the point, is this guy could have told me to screw off, when I'm asking him questions the first day, but instead he bent over backwards and saw that I was new to the sport and made sure that if I ever had questions, I could use him as a resource. And I think that goes exactly what you're saying. Now I got a friend for life that I get to travel around the world with at these world championships. So it's exactly what you're talking about.
No, it's great. I mean, I've met some of my best friends through the sport. I mean, back in the days to now. I mean, it's they're lifelong friends and friends that I highly value and trust. And they not only lift me up when I'm down, but if I'm being too full of myself, they're more than happy to knock me over the head. But that's the beauty of it.
Right.
I love the community. I love the passion that people in the swimming community and masters, but also just swimming in general. It's like a little family, and that's hard to find.
So this year, did you, because of all this, obviously everything's been canceled all over the place. Do you have? Because like you said earlier, it's the same thing with me. It sucks not having something to train for. There's no. I left my race schedule up on my fridge because I'm one of these. I do a lot of cheesy stuff, so I put my race schedule on my fridge, and every day I'd look at it and be like, okay, this is coming up. And I knew they're all canceled, but I just couldn't come to grips with it. You know what I mean? And it was like a killer moment to take that off the fridge and throw it out. And so I guess during these times, I mean, do you know when your next event's going to be?
I don't, and I'm actually very happy about that, and I'll tell you why. And I actually had this conversation the other night with a close family friend of mine, and the last 7 years of my life, it's all about racing, right? It's all about competitions. So it's all geared to 1 month after the next. I gotta get ready. I gotta get prepared to this race. Well, that's all great. It gives you goals and gives you the opportunity to push yourself. But I've realized with COVID, the first thing I realized is there's a lot of things that bad habits, technique issues, lack of strength sometimes, that all the weaknesses I had start to build up. So for the first time in 7 years of getting back into swimming, I'm not injured. I don't have competition. It was the first time I can focus on making myself better. And I think that's the whole point. And I ended up embracing it. And I said, okay, I need to get stronger. I need to fix certain things of my stroke that have made me less efficient. And I literally and analyzed my technique down constantly so that, I like to joke, I'm trying to go slower to get faster. And because this is the only time I have. I don't, next year, hopefully, we'll all get back to racing. But then we'll be in that gear. I gotta compete. I gotta get faster.
Right.
And you don't have time to focus on the weaknesses. You're just gonna power upon all the errors you're making.
Taking that hard intrinsic look at yourself like that is sometimes. I mean, it's painful. It's for me. I mean, without this quarantine and everything being canceled. I mean, I wouldn't have even considered getting on Zwift or trying this out or. Starting a podcast show and, trying to inspire other athletes to get to high levels like you are. So, but the same thing too is I also, not the greatest habits in the world in terms of rest and stretching and all that kind of stuff, and I think you're exactly right. I've had to also take a real kind of cyclical look at what I'm doing on a daily basis. And I'm like, you got to incorporate a lot more, real just analyzation of yourself and kind of really take a deep hard look at yourself and see how you can get, because it's always about the long,
Right, absolutely. I'm a firm believer. I challenge everybody out there to do it. Embrace this time because you're not burdened by anything else outside of what you have to do every day. and you don't have competition to worry about. That you're home most of the time. You can work out, you can train, focus on the little things, build yourself, make yourself better 1% every day. Because as we get older, and I learned this a couple years ago. I went out to Arizona, and you being a football player, I think you know this place well. Access Performance Centers.
Yeah.
They do a lot.
Yep.
They do the NFL draft potential players and
Yep.
getting ready. Well, I went out there. Oh man, I think early spring of 2019 maybe. So yeah, about a year and a half ago. Spent a week out there, and I got to listen, hear, and work, train, and under the Exos trainers, and understand just not just physical training, the strength training, the functional training, but also stuff like mindset, rest, and nutrition. And that all, as we get older, becomes more and more important to maintain elite athletic performance.
There's so many pieces to the puzzle. There's so many pieces to the puzzle.
Absolutely. And things I never thought about. Like, I never thought about when I was a kid. I ate crap. Pizza, burgers.
I was gonna say, fueled by pizza and hamburgers. That's how I grew up. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna burn off all these calories. I don't care what I eat.
Right.
Sleep. I don't sleep the best, and so I don't recover very well. So the first time I went out there, it was a shock. Like, they taught me about mindset. They taught me about nutrition. They made a meal plan. I was like, what meal plan? I can't just scarf food down. What I should eat, when I should eat, and that made a huge difference. It allowed me to recover. It allowed me to feel good every day. Allowed me to perform my best in training. And allowed me to perform my best in competitions. I swam faster last year than I had at almost any point in the last 7 years.
That's insane. That is crazy.
And a couple of events I swam
Last minute
back when I was competing in college.
That's wild.
So, and I've never felt better physically.
Just a fine line. Just getting better with age. That's all there is to it.
I don't know. When I wake up in the morning, it doesn't feel that way sometimes. The first 15 minutes getting out of bed is a struggle.
When you wake up, you're the $2 Chuck from Trader Joe's.
There are times I literally roll off the bed and have to push up things I can't stand. But those things I've learned have been hugely important to being able to maintain good athletic elite performance. And it's been huge for me. And it's a mindset. It's everything that's holistically when you think about being an athlete.
it's strong here. Guys, we did it. Holy crap. All right, now just like every workout, I'm gonna do Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, right now, we have an opportunity, at least for me, after the rest of the year, but sitting at home at least.
Yeah, me too.
Where I can break everything down, not just, to your point, not just what I do in the sport, but how I eat, how I sleep, how I think. Every aspect to gear myself to be better, not just in the pool, but in life, right? So I challenge folks. This is a great opportunity to embrace something that may be negative around us, but could be a positive for each individual.
Well, I say that too. I mean, if you come out of this, time period without having developed a new skill, or learning something new, or trying something out that you've never tried in the past, it's not your lack of time, because people always point to, well, if I had the time, I'd do this. If I had the time, I'd do that. You have the time. So after this is all over, if you haven't developed any new skills, or like I said, any of that stuff, I mean, I don't think time's really the issue. You know what I mean? So what you're saying, I think, is exactly nail on the head, and that's basically why I wanted to you to share your story. And I didn't even know, for those that are listening, we've had minimal conversations. We've never actually spoken to each other. It was, you emailed me, I sent you the video, and you emailed when you helped my swim. So I had no idea about this whole roller coaster that you were on. I mean, you were an elite Olympic athlete to, in your early 30s, 60 pounds, above to where you were, to back to, you're just one of the best swimmers that, is competing. It's incredible. So if I were to ask you, someone's listening to this and they're like, I want to get into this. What would your advice be for them to get started? Where would they start?
Yeah, I do things. I think I said earlier two things. I'd say know what your purpose is,
and there's the Lutscher route.
Find that why are you wanting to do it, and find your passion for it. If you don't have either, you're going to quit, right? The way to be successful in anything you do is those two in combination. And I found my why, that gave me my purpose, that gave me my passion back. And and the other thing is, don't fear. We're going to fail. We all feel fear failure. Don't. Failure is going to come. We failed many times in our lives, and we're still here. So take that plunge, take that risk. Don't let your ego or your pride get in the way. If you lose, you win. It doesn't matter. It's not the end result. The end result will come. When I started 7 years ago, I didn't care. I just didn't want to make a fool of myself. I was more worried my goggles would fall off and my speed would come off if I dove in. I had no expectations. But I knew what my why was. I had to get healthy, or I may not be alive to see my son get older. And that's what drove me. What has happened since has been because I found my passion for it. And it's allowed me the opportunity to experience new things. I mean, I've gotten to travel to Europe and Asia. I mean, Japan, South Korea, Budapest. I mean, I've gone to a lot of places. I've met a lot of amazing people who are very close to me.
And imagine 33-year-old you.
Yeah.
And you talking to that kid now. You'd be like, it would have been overwhelming to think about the work that you'd have to put in, but the longest journey begins with the first step, right? I mean,
7 years ago, I was borderline suicidal, borderline about to die. I was in a deep depression of all the things bad had happened. And before that, everybody would look at me and go, man, you had it all. But in reality, inside, I had nothing.
What a workout.
Woo!
That's pretty deep.
That change in my life, that catastrophic event changed my life to where it transformed me to have a purpose and a passion that I never thought I had again. Mm-hmm. And that really gave me the opportunity to be where I am today. I mean, it permeated through my whole life. I mean, not just my swimming, but my relationships with people, my being a father to my son, being a better son to my own parents.
So
it really
that was a hell of a workout.
And I think
if you look at that, we did it. Didn't cheat at all. Got the whole thing done. It's 40 minutes, around 275 watts. Brutal. I'm going to pause the interview here. There's still another 17 minutes left of the interview, so if you enjoyed Nei-Kuan and you wanted to hear more about his story, you can go to anywhere you get your podcasts. Just search Go4TheGoldy. That's Go4TheGoldy. Go4TheGoldy, and you'll find it. We're going to have another great guest on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Alyssa's a professional triathlete, so I'm going to be very excited to talk to her because I am a triathlete myself, obviously. But that's about it for the day here. So, thanks for coming by again. Thanks for watching, and we're going to continue to crank these workouts out and just, keep trying to be our best here. So have a great rest of your day. Go for the Goldie. Yeah.